Welcome back to the Manufacturing Come Up, where we talk about people's backstory and how they got to where they're at in their career. Today I have an awesome guest with us, Director of Sales of Kuka, Darcy.
Yep, Darcy Charbonneau.
Yeah, I wasn't going to try to pronounce your last name.
Yeah, it's all right, man. It's French-Canadian. So that's where the roots come from.
I can barely do English words, so. Awesome. Well, thanks for being on today.
Yeah, no worries, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it as well. This episode of the Manufacturing Come Up is sponsored by Elite Automation.
Elite Automation is focusing on AMR technologies. AMRs are autonomous mobile robots used in your facility to transfer goods or products from one side of your facility to the other.
This is a super powerful tool, and it's a new piece of technology that us as systems integrators can utilize as a tool to leverage your company to be more advanced than the next company and be able to automate systems that at one point were not able to be automated.
If you have any AMR needs, you can reach us at rfq@eliteautomationusa.com.
So, take us back to kind of the beginning of what got you involved in this industry.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think you and I just were just actually talking about this. It's like, it all started off, my brother. My brother was in automation. We grew up in Northern Ontario, Canada. You know what I mean? There was actually a great program in a little town called North Bay. And we had some great instructors that came from the Southern Ontario, from a lot of the automotive industry. And they all came back to become instructors at the school. And we all went into this, a lot of us went into this robotics program. So you'll actually see a lot of these guys that came out of my generation, from my brother's age, 6 years older than I was, to my generation, that are all in the industry, and they all kind of went through all the way through Canada and all the way into the US. So the guys that are at AB, Kuka, Fanuc, all the major robot brands, as well as some of the bigger robot manufacturers and engineers that are major integrators. So
really,
there's a lot of influence of the guys that come from Canada that end up in the US. So
really,
yep.
So what was the kind of the start of that? Was that at high school, or was that college? Or?
Yeah, so for me it was a college level thing. So It was a brand new program from when my brother went through it 6 years prior to me. So it was something where I was actually going to go to art school.
Really?
Yeah, so it was either art school, and then I started watching my brother, and he got out of school, and then he started making a lot of money and doing robotics and programming. I'm like, maybe I'll go that direction instead. And that's how it went for me. So I ended up going to the exact same program. I ended up moving down to Windsor, Ontario. And eventually it led me starting doing projects and contract work into the US. And I realized after 6 months that I didn't want to be a contractor anymore.
Exactly.
That gig gets kind of old pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I had a good friend of mine that was working at Kuka. He's like, hey, we need some service engineers over here. And c'est la vie, 23 years later.
23 years.
From an engineer
Freaking crazy.
to being the director of sales, and the journey's been fantastic. I love it.
That's awesome.
It's been great.
That's awesome. Whenever you went into that program, did that program have a particular name, or what degree was it?
So in the degree we went through, so you could go a couple of different paths. So it was like electromechanical robotics engineering.
Sure.
But the first year the guys could have branched off becoming more control engineering aspect.
Gotcha.
But even to the fact where they can even go all the way over to mechanical engineering on the aviation side.
Gotcha.
So you're learning a lot more hands-on on the mechatronics, the physics, the math, and then what was really cool about the program, they actually applied it to the things like robotics, right? So
Gotcha.
You weren't just learning the background of how a robot works.
Yeah.
You actually apply the actual the physics, the math to it, right? So it was kind of great. And then they started applying more in the second year, the hands-on feel.
Yeah.
We were able to touch some of the oldest robots, the Unimates.
Yeah.
Some old ABBs, there was an older Kuka there. There was a hydraulic robot.
Yeah, because this is what, like 25 years ago?
Yeah, but 23, 24, 25 years ago. Yeah, so I don't like to admit how old I am, right? But I mean, when you're in the industry this long, there's things that make you who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And that education was part of that. So
yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
a lot of the people you surround yourself with, right? So
Yeah, I think it's pretty crazy too that that long ago that they had such a good robotics program, because I feel like on the US there really wasn't that. There was not many degrees.
Even coming right out of school and getting a chance to touch a lot of projects, a lot of stuff was automotive, right?
Right.
And so either you were part of an automotive program or you're supporting an automotive program. It wasn't until maybe 9 years later into the career at Kuka when we started going at least into the direction of general industry, where you got to feel like, hey, well, we're touching other industries outside of automotive, right? So it was pretty, even in the US, like there's not a ton of automation outside of automotive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it goes back into just like the production rates are higher, the money's there, like a lot more capital floating around in that industry.
yeah, and that's the biggest draw, right? You know, if I talk to kids nowadays, I'm like, get into engineering, get into automation, be a programmer, learn how to write code.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a job for life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, even the way my career steered myself, going from a programmer and an engineer,
yeah,
made me a better sales guy.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it's made me a better sales director, because I feel that if I can walk into a room and talk to you intelligently about robotics and on the engineering aspect of what we do,
Yeah.
I'm not doing my job
Yeah.
justice. I'm not doing my company justice, but it helped me build me up, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I could do if I didn't have that background.
Right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like there's a lot of like sales engineers that were only sales engineers and they didn't get the actual engineering part of that process,
Yeah.
which there's a huge value add to that, right? When you really understand like the customers' like pain points, like the struggles they deal with, like if you're a mechanical engineer when it comes to designing something, like you get a firsthand experience of those struggles that you go through.
Yeah, and then that's only another piece of advice I can give to anybody coming up into this industry. You know, build up your hard skills, right? That technical skills, but also focus on soft skills, right?
Yeah.
And it helps you as a business owner. It helps you with your customers. So it doesn't matter if you're behind a teach pendant for 8 hours a day. Eventually, you're going to be a front face to somebody, right? So make sure you work on both sides of your skill set, hard and soft.
Yeah, I'll be honest, like that was one thing that I definitely missed out on throughout my career. I was very much engineer. I was good at managing my team that I had, but outside of that, like I didn't have a lot of customer interaction. I didn't have a lot of maybe vendors, but even with vendors, it wasn't a ton, right? A lot of times there were senior guys above me that were choosing what parts we were using, especially earlier on in the career, right? So it's definitely something I wish I would have put a lot more energy into whenever I was just doing my engineering and project management type of job task.
You get really focused, and then there's nothing wrong with that. Like you said, you have to be focused to like kind of tune your craft.
Yeah.
And you want to be the best at what you want to be at, right?
Yeah.
But eventually you realize, oh, okay, there's other parts of this for us to build off into as a career. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you got started out, you say you were doing controls?
So we learned controls, we learned robotics,
Okay.
we learned mechatronics. You kind of deep dive, and you got that.
Gotcha.
You learn everything, what direction you want to go.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have like branched off. I could have done something else. I could have stayed an extra year in school.
Gotcha.
I mean, and got another degree, another portion to my degree in Canada. But honestly, I wanted just to get out and I want to start working, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, so there's nothing wrong with that. Like you said, I think the experience a lot of people do if they go into trades.
Yeah.
Even to go a 1-2 year school in automation, learning how to program goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you got into your first position, right? What type of position was that?
Programming robots, man.
Programming
I will
robots.
tell you this: I programmed every single robot you know except for a Kuka before I came to Kuka.
Really?
I did a project for General Motors. I did projects for Kawasaki. I did projects for every single brand. So when my buddy said, "Hey, you want to come?" I'm like,
Yeah.
I haven't really programmed a Kuka. He's like, it's fine. And what you learn more about this industry, the brands are not much different from each other from a program structure. That's why learning code is so important in the industry, right? So if you learn that kind of the inline form and how logic works, you can really pick up anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I come from the controls engineering background as well. Like, I personally haven't done a ton of Kuka programming myself, but same thing. You throw a teach pendant in my hand for a couple of days, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, and that's why we're excited about that. Right? So we want to be able to, people like, maybe they're familiar with another product for a long time, and they just say, hey, it just takes intuitiveness to kind of make that take a step and get something in hand. It's easy to pick up. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever you transitioned and came to Kuka, what was the first thing that you got into? Was it controls still?
Yeah, so for me, we dove right into like real true projects, right? So we were doing startup support, engineering, service stuff, as well as troubleshooting. I learned a lot about troubleshooting when I first came into business. So we did a lot of like just customer breakdown support, startup support for new plants. So it's definitely, that was my first 6 years of my career. A lot on the road, but you realize you'll learn a lot After 6 years, I was ready to get off the road. That's when I went more into sales.
Gotcha. So whenever you was like done with being on the road, you've had enough of it, and then you transitioned into sales position at that point?
Yeah, so I actually ran a customer service aftermarket. And when it came to service contracts, it wasn't even, the position didn't even exist at Kuka. They started doing it a little bit over in Europe. I'm like, guys, I know what our customers are dealing with. Let's figure out ways to give them what they need on the front and like figure out recommended spare parts or maintenance contracts or start service support long-term people in their facilities. So we helped build that up. I was an island by myself for many years. I ran a group. I coordinated with all the other managers within Kuka in different departments. I grew that for a little bit. I had some more people work with me in that group. But during COVID, and our president at the time said, "Hey, do you want to come over to run the sales team?" So they asked me to take over the East Coast. And after 6 months, they're like, "Do you want to just take over the whole thing?" I'm like, "All right." And honestly, that was a different dynamic. Like, I mean, like for us, it was a team, right?
Right.
And I felt working with a team, and running a team felt way more purposeful than just being by myself and trying to figure out everything myself. It kind of made me relinquish control of letting other people do what they need to do because they're just really good at it, but also as a help to develop and mentor people, right? So that was a really cool aspect of what I do now.
Yeah, absolutely. Diving back into whenever you first took that initial position, and then you got to the point where you was kind of created that island for yourself, right? What was the, I guess, what was the shift? What transition to you start doing that? Was it an organic thing that you started building out? Or
yeah, it was really organic, right? It was like I started developing the people skills, right? When you start you're in front of customers all day long, you understand what their needs are, and that's what's so important about this business is just listening. I mean, if you could teach anybody to do things as they get into this business, just listen. You can go in there and you can pitch something, you can pitch your product, you can pitch your technology, until you learn how to sit in front of a group of people or a person one-on-one and listen what their needs are.
Yeah.
And you start evaluating, you start positioning yourself differently on how you approach the market. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, you're YouTube famous. I gotta shake your hand.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Let me leave you a brochure.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Local celebrity.
Where do we end at? Sorry. Yeah, so like that, I guess one of the issues that I had, and I think people that went through what I went through, they definitely have to put more effort into it, because the one thing that you were lucky to do is like you were on job sites and doing service work, and so that was putting you front facing with the customer. And like one of the things that I experienced while I was still in college, I went to work for a systems integrator, and capital projects is what I did. Yeah. So I was always in a shop floor setting. I was always working on a capital project that maybe we would see a customer every 3 months, 6 months, something like that. Yeah. And it was a smaller shop too, so there wasn't people coming in and out all the time. So it's like somebody in that position, like they have to kind of push hard to like, how do you get out there a little bit more, and how do you like talk with more people to build those skills?
And honestly, these are the environments that do this, right? I mean, you have like these A3 events, you have different types of shows, and I say different types of shows because that's super important, right? If you're getting into this industry, you can focus on one industry, like welding, like we're at today, but try to like expand your horizons. Yeah. I mean, like, and you'll find the different people that are different to work with, different needs, and then you'll find the commonality of what helps solve those problems all together. But everybody has a different stick, right?
Right.
That's what I love about this industry in general. Like I said, one day I can be automotive, right? I can have a tier 1 customer. The second day, I'm dealing with medical. Next day, we're dealing with entertainment. Yeah. Next day, we're doing food and packaging. Yeah. Next day, I'm looking at guys building rockets. Yeah. It's all over the place, right? So that's what's really exciting about this industry in general. Yeah. This is why I'm in robotics and why I stayed in robotics. If I had to do the same job over and over and over again, day in, day out, I probably would not be here. I would be somewhere else, right? So it's what draws people into this industry. Yeah, and definitely like they get stuck here too. It's like, I personally love this industry. I couldn't see myself going anywhere, especially in the robotics automation side of things. Manufacturing, I think, is still great, especially if they have a lot of cool things like robotics, then it's a great career path. But I'm extra bullish on automation just because like things are exciting, they're new. There's always some new technology. There's always some new application. There's always something new in your hands and that you get to work with daily. And you can't do it, and the big thing is you can't do it by yourself. It doesn't matter what, like, you have to rely on people that are coming up with new things. And you
Yeah.
gotta be open to it.
Yeah.
I mean, like us as a robotic company here at Kuka is that we can come out with robots, positioners, technology, software, but there's always someone creating a new product or a new piece
Yeah.
of software that helping solve an extra problem that we can't solve.
Right.
So you have to embrace not only the integration partners that are helping doing the turnkey
Yeah.
solutions, but you have to embrace those technology companies that are
Oh, absolutely.
pushing the limits of like complementing like companies like
Yeah.
us, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. Like maybe like something like Path, right? Path Robotics,
Yeah.
they're doing, they're autonomous welding,
Yeah.
right? There's the new technologies coming out in the market that, who knows? Maybe at some point in time we don't have to program a weld path. It's
Exactly,
already
right.
in the mechanical engineering.
yeah, everything when it comes to vision, recognition of the part, CAD to path. There's a lot of things that are pushing the boundaries of robotics, and it will push the boundaries every level. It doesn't matter if it's package palletizing or if it's welding.
Yeah,
it's all
absolutely.
coming, and it's exciting.
Absolutely. One other thing that I love that you said is the listening part, right? Like, and you said these trade shows, like us being at these trade shows, like it's cool, like awesome, like meeting one another, communicating, talking, right? There's that level of these shows, which is definitely one of our favorite parts. But the other thing is like us as a company, me, Jenno, like being at these shows, like we're listening, we're walking around, we're seeing, what's here, what is FabTech, you know what I mean? What is Pack Expo? Because there's an inclination in your mind before you go, like of what FabTech kind of is.
Yeah.
But like I like to say, taste it. You don't taste it until you go there and experience it. And into the future, like we're going to be putting booths at these places, and we want to know the right places, and also like just being educated on, what is the right place for us.
Yeah.
But then also like what is the place that's not the right place, but it's like so weird that it just makes sense.
Yeah, and that's you're like that's the boundary pushing, right? That's like
Yeah.
you look at these applications, and because some guys will come together with a solid project, and the other ones you're like, okay, so how do we get there, right? And
Right.
And it's okay to you listen. I love listening to startups
Oh yeah,
because they
they're
will push
excited.
them. And we dealt with some startups that are multi-million-dollar companies right now, right?
Yeah,
Because if you don't take the risk on smaller companies,
yeah,
you'll never understand that reward at the end and what they're.
Oh, yeah.
It gives you that sense of contribution. Like I helped those guys a little bit, not
Yeah.
everything, because they're probably really smart people because of the way they got there. But
yeah,
you get to have that sense of involvement, and you only do that by like looking at someone's name tag and they're like, oh, what do you guys do? Or listen to their backstory, right? And you wouldn't get that if you don't come to a show like this or any kind of
Absolutely.
show, so.
absolutely. So going back into your transitioning of sales, you when you went from your controls position and transitioned, how was the opportunity presented, or how did you go about getting that opportunity?
Well, for me, it was like I say, it was burnout, right? Burnout happens. It's a real thing. You're on the road all the time. Like say, we're servicing, engineering. We're like just supporting customers. You're on a plane, day in, day out. I started having a family, just like yourself. You have a big family, and family's amazing.
Yep.
And you come. That for me was a realization that I need to get my ass off the road.
Yep.
Hey, you can bleep that one out. But it just was that I needed to have some dynamic change in my priorities in life. And I think the position of sales allowed me not only to do something else I'm good at is talking with people and having that extroverted personality and of like listening to people's problems, solving them, but it allowed me then to figure out developing a new role with what I knew on the technical level, and then apply it to sales.
Yeah,
Which was a new skill that I still had to learn, right?
Right.
I mean, I could still have a conversation easily with a person, I could listen, but still selling, closing, it's a different dynamics than fixing, troubleshooting.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely.
So,
Especially if you have to be kind of pushing the ball forward a little bit.
exactly, right? You have to be outward facing to that customer, right? So,
Yep.
but it lent itself well. Like I said, from that it built up.
Yeah.
It built up. Like remember that I was in that role for that outward sales role
Yeah.
in the customer service side of our business for
Yeah.
like almost 10 years.
So was that something that you had to apply for, or like how did that?
No, it was, like I said, they just started that growth of that type of outward
Sure.
service in Germany.
Sure.
And at the time, I'm like, you guys, why don't we start doing more of that in the U.S.?
Okay.
And
Okay.
then I started coordinating with the colleagues in Europe and how they were structured. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to start modeling. And then they started.
This episode of the Manufacturing Come Up is sponsored by Elite Automation.
Elite Automation is a systems integrator specializing in robotic weld cell applications, and especially the design and manufacturing of the weld fixture.
If you have any robotic weld cell needs, you can reach us at rfq@eliteautomationusa.com.
Rolling out more of a global strategy, and I was part of that global strategy.
Gotcha. Okay. So you, I mean, essentially, we're like one of the pioneers here on the U.S.
I won't
side.
say pioneer, but but you know what? I'm glad I was part of it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You always try to be a person in a part of the team, and I felt like I was a good contributor, and I was able to build something. I was part of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever it came to you've been doing that, and you kind of grew that as you know, let's just say a division inside of Kuka, right? And then now you're operating that as a division in a sense, like
it's like it's a whole aftermarket service group now, right?
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
we have a whole new team members that are either that were part of the company back then,
Yep.
that are running it, the people that were kind of hired after when I left that role and became director of sales.
Yep.
And now we have colleagues from Europe and Germany that are here helping, and the division itself is also growing, right? Now
Yeah.
we're doing IQOT stuff and doing Internet of Things, where we're doing development of software to help, influence plants' decisions on analytical data. So that's another selling thing that we put in customer service. But we're still doing the support contracts. We're still doing maintenance contracts.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, some companies, like, how often do they buy a robot, right? And the smaller companies, like, that's one reason why we've shifted a little bit from material handling to welding is we've just seen more repetitive success with repeat buys, right? Like, don't get me wrong, material handling, there's a ton of buying going on there, right? I don't want to say there's not. But we struggled finding the right size customer that fit us that also was doing repeat buys, you know?
And repeat buys, right, is like you can sell a customer the first robot,
Yeah.
but if you don't treat them right and you don't show them the support and you don't understand what their needs are, they'll never buy from you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where my mentality from where my history is within Kuka.
Yeah.
I try to bring that forward into every conversation I have.
Yeah.
Because I'm not there to, hey, I'm going to try to sell you a robot today. I'm trying to understand how can I partner with you today and keep you a customer for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not just trying to be so minded on what the focus of that single sale is.
Yeah.
You have to understand what are the things you have to provide that individual or that company. Prove to them, make you feel confidence and trust that you will take care of them long term.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's one thing. Like I love to tell customers, like, we're looking to do business for a lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, this is not a 5-year game, a 10-year game. Like, it's something that I want it to be a legacy that could get passed on to somebody else.
Yeah, it's an important thing. It's such a true statement, right? You want to leave your imprint, your mark on the industry, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. Like, for us, like, one thing that crosses my mind, we're nowhere near it, right? But, like, the thing that crosses my mind is, like, how do you pass off and still have, like, some of the same mentalities and some of the, like, one of the big things is, like, giving back type of situations, right? Like this podcast in reality, like, it's not very beneficial to us as a company in a sense. Like, we're not really promoting a product. We're not really talking about too much of our system integration or anything like that. So, like, value add to us back as a company, not that much, right? Maybe on the employment side of things, somebody finds us on YouTube and they want to come work for us. You know, there's some of that, but, like, really, like, whenever we started this, I told the team, I was like, this is not going to make the company any money. If it does, cool, whatever, but I don't want to look at it through that lens whatsoever. Yeah. And there's so many things, like, that I want to do as a company that we just don't have the capability of doing right now because just being a smaller, younger company.
Yeah.
But I want to keep that same thing pushing forward into the future of, like, how can we do other things that keep adding value? You know, you got Fronius over here that's doing the welding. They're letting people sit down and weld. Like, that's so cool to like get people involved like that, you know?
That is like we're trying as an organization try to do more in education. I mean, that part of it, but you got to look at it's just like I said, you gotta put it, what you put out there is what you're gonna get back, right?
Yeah.
So the more you can help younger generation to even influence. I have two smart daughters. If I can convince them to be engineers, it's gonna be a tough sell still. I mean, you're just trying to say, hey, this is a fruitful industry.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be very interesting.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. That's one of our first things. And to add to that, another one is the ROI side of it.
Yeah.
Because the higher the ROI, the more risk mitigation there is.
Yeah.
Right? So like, let's just say it's a single robot system. They both have the same simplicity, but if you had two people doing the job versus one,
Yeah.
you know, your payback's much more likely to be there and be there much quicker. And even if you don't hit your mark, you're still going to be doing, you know, 30% better than
Yeah.
you would have on a single employee system.
Yeah, and like you said, it's that return on investment is a dynamic calculation now, right?
Yeah. Oh,
because not only you're looking at the things that you're trying to help people improve, and
Yeah.
you're helping actually improve people by, hey, I need you to operate a robot now instead of doing
Yeah.
this the task that someone shouldn't even be doing in the first place.
Right.
But you're also dealing with just keeping people.
Yeah.
So people that come in are like, I don't want to do this, and then they just leave. And then like, oh, the company now has to find another person to try to do it, and another person, and
Yeah.
another person. So that's the dynamic of ROI that people are not only just saying, hey, I want to look at improving our process
Yeah.
by putting some automation. They're like, now I can't even keep people because
Yeah.
the application doesn't fit a human.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's an interesting dynamic, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, also another one that we see, like safety. I spend a lot of my time in automotive glass, and the big reason why there's so much automation going on in automotive glass is the safety part of it. You shatter automotive glass on the ground, and you're picking that up and handling that, like laceration is so easy.
And it's loud, isn't it? I've been to some glass plants. It's pretty damn loud.
Yeah. So you ended up taking over or taking on the position to do what sales was it?
It was the director of sales.
Director of sales.
And that was during COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, it was during COVID. It was like totally unexpected. I was just transitioning, working from home,
Okay.
and it was like literally 3 months in, and they're like, you know what, we're going to make a change, guys. And they say, would you be interested? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And like, I'm like, you never know, like, do you want to take that next level in your career and next step up?
Am I good here? Or do I want to go? Yeah.
And for me, it was all kind of stars aligned. It was like the new people that were coming into the organization, I felt I was going to be a good fit. And sometimes that's a key there too, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you didn't want to move up because there was somebody volatile that the dynamics in the group might not have been right for me 2 years prior.
Yeah.
But that timing, it just fit. I mean, I felt the people that were going to mentor me from above,
Yeah.
and the people that could report to me would all align.
Yeah.
Right? And that was a big decision for me. Like, so when I took it, I interviewed for it. I think there was external candidates. I still wasn't sure. I'm like, I'm not going to get the position. There's no way.
Right.
And the president said, you got the job. I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, oh. I'm like, and like I said, it was a completely different dynamic.
Yeah.
The team was the coolest thing about it. Yeah, my team is phenomenal. I love my guys are great. They're all over the country. So like you deal with employees on your team all over the world.
Right.
So it's cool when you have to communicate like through. You got to remember that's where we grew up. I grew up as a director in the company through Teams, through Zoom.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you got to experience that remote.
I had to wait
management
6
of
months
things.
sometimes before I met a guy. I'm like, oh, dude, it's nice to meet you in person. You know what I mean? So
yeah, definitely know what you mean. Yeah, I think that definitely having like the right people to work with makes a big difference because like it can make your management life a nightmare on either ends, you know, and it could be the upper management side of things, pushing you to do things that are maybe, I'll just say unethical for like lack of, better word, but just operating things that maybe in a way that like rubs people wrong or something like that.
As long as I think for me, it's all about behaviors. With the team you build up, if you as an individual have the right behavior, you're ethical, you approach a job with the right mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, you try to teach those things out. There's going to be incidents when people, like say, you can't teach that. They're not a good fit for the role, whatever the case may be.
Maybe culture.
But if you have the right behavior when you come in, you could come in with zero education, like a 0 degree.
Yeah.
If you have a mentality and you have a drive, that hunger, you could do anything. I truly believe. I'm not a proponent of looking at you got a degree from here.
Yeah.
I mean, I like listen to people on the personality, especially when I interview people for new roles.
Yeah.
That integrity of that person and how they present themselves, their background. I can see like where they work, how long they work for companies, and just how they present themselves. I do a video every time I do an interview with a person, and it's for that reason. I want to see their body language. So I want to see how they respond. I'll throw a curveball in there and you know what I mean? But that's the only way. You can only get so much from that first couple of interviews, but eventually you'll find out, do they have the right behavior? Are they going to approach it? And like we've done the last couple of hires, and it's the way I hire has changed, and I'm glad I've done it because now I can see, okay, those are the things I was looking for at the beginning. And if I wasn't looking for those things at the beginning, I wouldn't realize that person could have been the right fit for us, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing that for me personally, I've grown a lot in when it comes to like operating a business.
Yeah.
So we hired our COO about a year ago, and a year and a half ago now, and extremely good at interviewing.
Yep.
I mean, like, he's a shark at it, and I've learned so much from him and the way his interview style. Like, me, I'm just like, especially when I first started, I would interview somebody and they'd be like, yeah, I program Fanic robots, and I'm like, yeah, hire him, you know what I mean? Or whatever, right? Oh, he can program a Kuka robot, cool, we have a project coming up, something like that. And it's like, and there's like no digging that's involved in that. There's no questioning, and I'm still learning the process, to be honest.
Yeah, and I am too. So I have a great mentor, my boss, Nate Brazil. He's out of South Carolina, and when he's up here all the time, he's actually at the show this week. He's been a great mentor for me. And like I said, when we do interviews, it's like almost like I'll be very much optimistic, and then he'll come out and give this is how it is, pessimistic, everything you could possibly run into. And but it brings out people's reactions of and how they would actually react to. Do they really want the job? You know what I mean? Do they feel they would be a good fit? Right? So.
Yeah, we was interviewing somebody, and we knew that they was a good fit because we was in the negotiation process for salary, and one of our points was, hey, you're gonna be working from home, like right? And this person, we're hiring them for an accounting position.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, but you're going to be saving overhead, like talking about all the expenses we'd be saving, but they were so quick on it that I almost missed it for a second. I was like, dang, man, and this is your accounting person, so you want them to be good at the numbers, good at, what they're doing. Yeah. And so it's funny, you just, little things pull out.
Little things. You see that reaction. For me, the big thing I use is I ask them how they plan 2 weeks in advance. What do you do? How do you plan as a person? How do you organize your weeks? That tells a lot.
Okay.
You feel that when a person wakes up in the morning and they plan from Monday through Friday for the next 2 weeks, people are like, well, I'll figure it out as you go. Or I mean, those are the people that are extremely successful. They
Okay.
plan out their days. They reach out to customers. They understand this is where I have to either put some more attention to myself to learn or train myself
Yeah.
on a thing, putting the time aside.
Yep.
Those are the people that have the right behavior, man.
Yep.
It's true. It's like, so more of the aspect of the person's, what their tendencies are,
Yep.
and you ask those types of questions, you'll
Yep.
gain a lot, because you don't realize that a person that doesn't have a plan all the time or is not prepared,
Yeah.
they sometimes they have those same behaviors 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the thing that, like you said, is like tendencies. Like, you know, any type of way that you can pull out what somebody's tendencies are, that's a great way. Because, like, you know, maybe you're interviewing me and I'm like, I don't schedule anything,
Yeah.
right? And then you're like, what, dude? You don't schedule anything? What do you mean?
Yeah.
And then, like, maybe we get to talking and I'm like, yeah, you know, I do this. I start off my day like, you know, what's going on? So I start off my day like this, and I jump on the treadmill. I get out my laptop. You know, and then you're like, okay, so like this guy doesn't like put it on a calendar and but he knows like this is what my day kind of looks like. This is what, and you see that through the tendencies where like,
Even follow-up. You know, like people that do proper follow-up, and they're like, hey, or if you were my sales guy and I called you, I'm like, hey Malachi, what's going on this week? Anything I can help you with? And you can ram off this, like, I did this, this, and this, and I might need help with this. When people are like kind of like they have to think about what's going on in their week, or what's going on in their what's important to them and their customers I feel like you're not prepared. You know what I mean? So just people take good notes are really great people.
yep,
You know what I mean? A lot of times, you know, like I'm not in an interview, I'm not going to bring my notepad, but
right,
I bring my notepad everywhere. I'm an old school guy. I write
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
down. I'm sure eventually I will get to like digital little pad and do it. But everything I'll have notepads, and I'll just write.
Yeah.
I'll be in meetings, write down and down, because it keeps me understanding, up to track, and say, hey, I had the conversation. If you have like
Yeah.
20 conversations in a day, you know what I mean, you got to
can't
have
keep track of
you
them if
have
you
to
don't.
have some level of detail so you can go back to, and really, like, I have a good memory. I'll say it's still there. It's good. But eventually, like, you know, you have to have some kind of level of, hey,
Yeah.
why did I have that thought?
yeah.
What did I
I
have?
can only remember so much,
You
or I
only
can,
remember so much.
yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something like I personally wish I was better at. Like I lean so hard on the execution side of things, and I think it's part of just the way I want to operate within the company. But it's like I almost want to be queued up like I'm like living the rock star lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Where like, hey, you're on in 5 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, who am I on with? Okay, here's all the notes of the
You just
person.
crush it.
Yeah. And so like, it's very weird because there's a part of it like you're saying, like having that plan, and it's like I think about it and I'm like, man, like I wish I had like a better plan, you know, and the way that my day's mapped out. But on the other hand, I feel like I'm 100% a different breed of an individual. I'm also like CEO of the company, so the way I need to operate may be different than like somebody else needs to
You're
operate.
going to constantly change, right? You're
Yeah.
also going to constantly change as a person. I mean, you're going to learn from, like, hey, last year or last 6 months, I was doing this, and it just wasn't productive as I needed to be.
Yeah.
And then you just change that little bit of a dynamic,
Yeah.
right? And then it changes your outlook, but it changes in how much you improve your own personal time management.
Yep.
So yeah, it's I try to always learn from myself, man. I am not perfect by any means, and I make a lot of mistakes. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter like what you do in life, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't matter how much you learn from them. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think also like building out a process for like the things that you do is very important. Like for myself, the event things are new for myself. I honestly I think I attended one event prior to this year
Yeah.
ever, you know, and so like the whole event life is completely new to me, and like with the way we operate and trying to execute and do as many things as we can while we're here.
yeah.
There's a process of learning on like what we can do, how we can do it faster, and like and getting like that process and procedure. Like one thing that we just shifted on doing like the past like 2 trade shows is we switched to Airbnbs,
Yeah.
right? And we did that because we were dropping $500 a night, and we're like,
Yeah,
guys,
hotels
like,
are super expensive.
Yeah.
Super expensive, especially in a trade show season like this. Everybody's jamming. It's not only finding a reservation for a hotel or a restaurant, wherever it is, it just gets enormously expensive.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So we even talk about as an organization, how do we help save some money? Because we also figure, do we need to have this many people at a show? Can we? I mean, we try to do people like we tier things. People bring people in, bring people out, right? And you want to give people as much exposure to a show like this, but you also want to say, hey, everybody's on a budget.
This episode of the Manufacturing Come Up is sponsored by Elite Automation.
Elite Automation is focusing on AMR technologies. AMRs are autonomous mobile robots used in your facility to transfer goods or products from one side of your facility to the other.
This is a super powerful tool, and it's a new piece of technology that us as systems integrators can utilize as a tool to leverage your company to be more advanced than the next company and be able to automate systems that at one point were not able to be automated.
If you have any AMR needs, you can reach us at rfq@eliteautomationusa.com.
Right? At some point in time, you want to stay within your budget, but yeah.
I think if you could get everybody down with the Airbnb, you could probably afford like a nice $3 million.
It's just like a big house, right? We'll have a big house party every night.
Oh yeah. I mean, you could easily probably afford like a $3 million mansion at the same cost as you're spending for all these hotels. Oh, I guarantee it. Like,
probably be more fun too, right?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got like this. We got an Airbnb like 8 minutes away. Swimming pool, a gym in it, and it's like a nice gym. It's not like a hotel gym. It's nice, and $60 a night.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We're used to paying $600 a night. Like, can't beat it.
Yeah, and like I said, other than shows, you guys are doing a great job on social media and the platform. I mean, that's where you're going to see more people like drive their business, not even like their exposure to their business, but if you're just putting a good message out to the market, right? And you guys have been pushing out a good message. It's what actually attracted for us to reach out to you guys and talk about ways that we can work together, and we're actually pretty excited about it. You know what I mean? Like, how would I ever know to reach out to Malachi if it wasn't for your podcast, right? So, or your presence on LinkedIn, right? So, I think there's many people out there that are pushing a really good message, and it's a matter of how do you kind of share that experience? You're building a community too, right? Which is cool. Yeah. I mean, like, how many times have you run into like people like, oh my God, you're like, hey, you know what I mean? I love that aspect of shows now. Like, it doesn't even make shows. Like, I run into people at the airports. I'm like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah, so cool. Yeah, definitely one of the things I love about it. I mean, events are huge for people to like network. If you're looking for a job or just looking to decide what you want to do as a career, man, if you were able just to spend 1 year hitting up every single show that you can hit up, like, you'll just learn so much and have such a good understanding of like what direction you want to take in life. Like,
yeah.
It's super powerful.
And then, like I said, you and I talked about this before, but like the education portion of it's for people to come to a show like this from a school. Huge benefit. Like, we're trying to do the same thing now, and when we have a big project that comes into a certain city, a certain town, a certain state, how do we work with local schools just like you're almost not only helping your customer to build up a workforce, especially when it's a new facility, new plant, new manufacturing. You have to understand that you have to build up people's competency with your product or your company, right? So that give back of looking out, and like you and I talked about even Ivy Tech in Indiana when we were looking at projects, it's huge. You know what I mean? You have to go out there, and it's not, you're not going to make a ton of money selling the education, but the purpose is much bigger than selling products, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those things are even better being a loss to the company, right? And like, consider it marketing, or like, that's the funny thing, like big companies, I think they would do a lot, like, even like, let's say for instance, like Fanuc and the money, like, or even, you know, you guys here, like the amount of money you spend on a booth, that if you took a portion of that money and put it towards like just giving robots to schools, yeah, that like, it may have an even longer term impact than
it's really building up the new breed of people that know robots in general, right? And nothing would make me more happier to see more people that I can go into any state in the United States and say, hey, do you know Kuka? Yeah, I learned it in school.
Yeah.
And when I do hear that now, because we're trying to build up that education aspect, it makes me like, oh, that's awesome. I'm lovely that you had a Kuka, and that's where you learn how to. And I'll buy a Kuka. That's what I know. I mean, the more we can do that, it doesn't matter what company you work for. It just makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Do you have any last valuable tips for the audience?
Last valuable tips is that if you're a kid coming out of high school and you're trying to figure out a career, doesn't mean if you're a boy or a girl. Like I said, I would love my daughters to go into engineering. This field is amazing. And like I said, just robotics and automation in general, right? There's so many different, you can go into controls, you can go into robotics, you can go into programming, you can be a welder. There's so many aspects that touch this industry. A lot of people don't consider it still. A lot of people you can even go in on the trade side of the business and still, you can come to a couple classes and still learn this industry and be successful, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to go get a full-on college education.
Yeah.
So my message out there is this industry has been amazing to me over the last 2 decades, and I'm really looking forward to more people that are coming up out of school that consider automation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's an unknown industry still.
It is. I still feel like people are, and it's the younger generation. There's going to be so many people that retire that make decisions from plants, or make decisions from companies, and then it's going to be Gen Xers, millennials, Gen Zers that are going to make decisions in this industry. And the more people that we can bring into it, it's going to change the dynamics. And I think it's going to bring in a lot more new things too, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
and we're going to be like, oh, remember when we did robotics 10 years ago? Yeah.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Malachi. I really appreciate the interview and look forward to seeing you around. All right,
Likewise.
take care.